All right, so I think I've got this thing really well dialed in now. Kids raising heck inside. Let's check it out. Okay, here we are at the thermometer. We are right at 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is below freezing. Let's go check it out inside of the greenhouse. Here we go, here we go. I'm out here in socks and slides for some reason. Ooh, it's warm in here. What do we got back there? Oh, can't see. We're at 61 degrees in here. That is a 30-degree temperature difference. I've never done that before. I'll show you how I'm doing that. Yeah, the best I've gotten is about a 20-degree temperature difference. But I'm really getting it dialed in now. So anyway, I do the logs and chicken poop method. Or we just pack it in tight. And for the logs, I like to use logs that are not as dry as some of the other firewood that I have. So the logs that I have, I don't have a moisture meter, but if I had to guess, if the super dry stuff that I have is properly dried at about 20% moisture, this is probably 40 or, you know, somewhere between like 35, 45%. And they're not split, so they take a long time to burn. Now those get packed in the back, kind of a real wet chicken poop laden straw in between. Then in the front, I've got my super dry stuff, and I use a little bit of softwood. I've got some cedar down here. Now I prefer not to burn softwood because softwoods like pine and cedar and so on will cause a lot of creosote buildup in the stovepipe. That can translate to a chimney fire if you don't clean it regularly. And just looking at the rain cap up there, I mean, I've noticed I've got a fair amount of soot buildup already. I don't know what exactly that's from, but it's probably from the softwoods out here. So those go into the front and they burn really, really hot. The thing that I was doing wrong before also is I thought that if I didn't leave the dampeners completely wide open, it would go out. And that's not true. Once that fire gets burning really, really well, then you can close the dampeners almost all the way. You know, once it really gets up to temperature, in my case, I'm looking for like 600, 650. Then I close them down almost all the way. I've got that super dry, really well-burning stuff in the front that burns hot, burns quickly, creates a bed of coals, and that bed of coals is what ignites everything else as it dries everything out, and that heat moves toward the back of the stove. And by doing that, before I could only get like a 20-degree temperature difference, 18, 20 degrees. I was really happy with that. Now, it's upwards of 30. And the other thing is I cut the ventilation off in here. I don't run ventilation when it's below freezing at all. Why not? Well, you need some amount of ventilation because your fire needs what to burn? Oxygen. But as it burns and it draws everything up out of that chimney, it's creating negative pressure on the inside here. And there's cracks and crevices around the door. There's still some cracks and crevices, you know, kind of around the bottom and everything. So the air finds its way in. I've been doing this for a week or two with no issues. And that's an important thing to talk about. Let me tell you a story. So last year, I had a much smaller greenhouse. I had the 200 square foot one, maybe 7 feet tall. I mean, as far as volume, probably about a fourth or a fifth of this one as far as interior space. Well, the power had gone out for 2 days. The power company was supposed to do rolling brownouts on various properties. In other words, they were going to shut your power off for a few hours, and that was supposed to help the power grid. Well, they shut it off down here for 2 days. And so anyway, the only heater I had at that time was electric, which couldn't be ran. And with that, obviously, I didn't need any ventilation, so I had these little Velcro windows that I would simply close off, and it worked good. So that was not good, and I had to figure something out fast. And luckily, a friend of mine, bless your heart, Mr. Emery, brought me a kerosene heater down here, and we parked it in there, and I lit it on fire, and we didn't have any power. The pipes froze. I wasn't going to stay here with it below freezing with a bunch of kids, so we packed up and went about a half hour away to my mom's house to ride this out. Well, I would come down here and check on it about once every 8 hours and make sure it still had kerosene. Well, that was the plan. When I came to check on it the first time, what had happened was the kerosene heater had burned up all of the oxygen. That one I sealed up really well. because that electric heat is expensive and I didn't want any of it coming out. So anyway, that oxygen all got burned up, and then it started to smolder and produce a massive amount of soot. The entire inside of the greenhouse was coated in black soot. Most of the plants were coated in soot. And it still got below freezing in there anyway, and half of the stuff died. So ventilation is nothing to play with. I mean, you want to make sure that, if you have something that is burning in there, you need ventilation. And really what I should be doing instead is put a kind of just a small little louver right in front of the wood stove, maybe 2 feet by 2 feet, and run my small ventilation fan. And just draw that cold air right across the wood stove, and then it's got 20 feet before it ever even reaches a plant. So that's probably the better thing to do, but I'm going to roll with it. Anyway, not to make a feature film out of all this, but that's how I'm doing it. That's how I'm getting it up to about 30 degrees temperature difference between the inside and the outside. And that is with single layer plastic. It's not double layered, and there's no air in between it, which means it basically has no insulation value at all. So pretty happy. Next year I'm going to double wrap this thing.